Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us this evening. I'm delighted to have Lorna Wagner with me from Maritime UK. So she's the Programme Manager for the Careers and Outreach part of Maritime UK. And tonight she's going to talk to us about the various careers, some of which I hadn't even considered until I spoke to Lorna the other day. So really interesting presentation. I really hope you enjoy it. Initially, what I'm just going to do is go through a little bit of housekeeping for those of you who have not been on a GoToWebinar before. So Lorna, if you could just pop through those slides for me. So we've got a control panel on our right-hand side for most of you. So for those of you who are on a Mac, it might be at the very top of your screen. So somewhere, hopefully on your screen, you've got a control panel. On that control panel, you'll see a button which looks like a hand. If you press that hand for me, I'll be able to tell that you can all hear me. So if a few of you could just put your hand up. Fantastic, we've got a few hands there. Great. And then you can put your hands back down again. We've also got a questions box. So if you do have any questions throughout the presentations, please pop the questions in there. I've got Molly Noland with me tonight as well. So any questions that go through, Molly and I will keep an eye on those. Most likely, we will ask the questions at the end. So we will just pose a few questions to Lorna at the end of her presentation rather than keep stopping and starting. However, if there are some that are really relevant to what Lorna's talking at that moment, and it would be quite good to ask it, we will do that. But otherwise, most questions will be asked at the end. Just so you're aware, the webinar is being recorded. We tend to edit out the questions at the end, but it does mean that those of the attendees that registered and weren't able to come this evening are able to then subsequently watch it at a later stage. When the webinar goes on to the support site, it will be on the CPD section within the training support site. So that's under the qualification section, and the webinars that training host are all there. So if you've missed any others previously, that's where you'll be able to catch them. Okay, I do hope you enjoy it, and I'm going to now hand over to Lorna. Good evening, Lorna.
Good evening. I'm just going to move on to my first slide. So my name's Lorna Wagner. As was described, I'm the Programme Manager for Careers and Outreach for Maritime UK. I haven't been in the maritime sector very long. In fact, last week it was my first year. My background is in FE, so 16 to 19-year-old college. So up until the end of April last year, I was working at Eastleigh College in Hampshire, managing all the support services there. And it's a lovely, exciting place to be with young people, but you know, student finance or managing the learning centre wasn't really very exciting. The thing that got me out of bed in the morning was the careers and employability offer. I'm a qualified careers advisor, although I've never actually had that role. I was careers leader at the college. And my job now is split actually between Maritime UK and Solent Lep in Hampshire. With Solent Lep, I work with them on the Maritime UK Solent Regional Cluster, the business network, and I support the Careers Hub activity there. For Maritime UK, I'm managing the careers programme for the sector. So that's kind of where I come from. So why am I here, and why have I got this information for you? I recognise that, that there is only me. I am the careers department within Maritime UK, if you like. It's just not possible for me to talk to every school leaver, college leaver, university graduate and adult job seeker about the maritime sector. We wrote a strategic plan, and within it we identified who our key influencers were and who the audiences were that we wanted to get the careers programme to. Hopefully you recognise the logo. There is an animated version of it where the anchor goes up and down and the crane turns around, and the windmill, the wind turbine windmill, there's a mistake, but the wind turbine is moving. But hopefully you recognise that. Hopefully you've seen it on social media. If you haven't, we're on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn. Please do follow me and help me share the news about the programme on social media if you're active there. So why is there a careers and outreach programme for the maritime sector? The Department for Transport wrote the 2050 strategy just about 5 years ago now. And in it, they set out what was the really good news about the maritime sector, and what they predicted would happen over the years between then and 2050. 2050 is really key because that's when the sector has made this commitment to be carbon net zero by. And that's not just about new ships and new boats having different types of engines or power sources. It's also going to be about all existing ships and boats that are engine driven, having an alternative fuel source. It's an absolutely massive thing for our sector. And when all of us were little and we drew pictures of cargo ships or cruise ships, we will have drawn the funnel and the big puff of black smoke that comes out of the top of it. So really that's where we're heading towards. But there are other things happening too. You will have heard people talk about free ports. There are 8 free port sites in England, and each one will, because of the way that the tax works and supports import and export, we're expecting that to mean a huge number of new jobs. Some of the numbers that I've seen are 170,000 jobs. We know that the maritime sector employs 1.1 million people. The 2050 strategy projects that by 2030, that will have doubled in size, 2.2 million people, and not 100% of all the same jobs. So the other things that the strategy was talking about was that it was a once in a lifetime opportunity for the sector to really come together to take advantage of what is predicted to be enormous growth, which is to do with the decarbonisation. It's to do with the modernisation of the sector. It's to do with things like Brexit, dare I say it, and the free ports. And they needed the people to be coming to this, come and find us, come and seek out the maritime sector, as opposed to people finding themselves working in the maritime sector, which is something that I hear quite often. So out of the 2050 strategy then came a people pipeline document, and out of that came a requirement for a coordinated and collaborative careers programme and the appointment of a programme manager, and that's me. So we have 1.1 million people working in the sector. Only 25% of them are at sea, but I bet if you were to talk to a young person about the jobs in the sector, if you're lucky, they'll talk to you about those cargo ships. If they live somewhere like the Solent and they know about the Isle of Wight ferries, they might talk about the Isle of Wight ferries. If you're really lucky, someone will talk about jobs at a port, but it doesn't come very, very often. If you're really, really lucky, then someone will talk about workboats of some description. They might talk about the RNLI, or they might talk about Border Force, or they might talk about water taxis on the Thames, for example. They're not, it's highly unlikely that they will talk to you about naval architecture, that they'll talk to you about design-based careers in maritime, that people are hearing about the shipbuilding strategy, and currently it's back with government for a refresh. The first one was very much about the Royal Navy and about defence shipbuilding, but it's being refreshed and added to, and commercial and leisure, well, commercial really for cargo ships, but the shipbuilding broader than just the Royal Navy is coming into it, so Merchant Navy as well as Royal Navy. When we identified these key audiences that we needed the careers programme to talk to, and as I said at the beginning, I can't possibly talk to all these people. We identified that we need to be talking to schools, colleges, universities. We need to be talking to teachers and tutors, careers professionals. We need to be talking to work coaches in Job Centre Plus, and people like yourselves in the role that you have as an instructor and as working with young people who are learning to sail. You're in the unique position of having those conversations with them that come naturally out of the environment that you're in and the subjects that you're talking about, and you become an informal careers advisor. So the purpose behind this session tonight is for me to help you feel a little bit more confident about the breadth of the sector, have an idea of where to go and get some information if someone asks you a question that you don't know the answer to, and have the confidence to be able to deal with that, so that you don't feel that you're in a difficult position. Obviously, you'll have your own lived experience, and whatever careers you've had, whatever your career pathways have been, and your personal knowledge and people that you know, it's unlikely that everyone knows everything about the whole sector. So that's really the purpose of this evening. So I'm going to start off at the very beginning by opening one of our polls, just so we can ascertain what we're dealing with. So the poll is open. How confident are you in answering questions? So hopefully you're able to answer that. So let's talk about the different industries that make up the sector. We've talked about the Royal Navy and the Merchant Navy. That's a really interesting one, and it's often a good opener for me with careers professionals and careers advisors. You'd be horrified, I'm sure, by how many will say to me they don't know the difference, or they try to describe it and they get a little bit tripped up. So the Royal Navy, we know, is defence, and the Merchant Navy is every other working boat. So and I'm sure you know the history behind the Merchant Navy and why it's called that. Boat building, shipbuilding, naval architecture, design careers in maritime. Naval architecture wasn't even terminology that I'd heard of before. So there was me in leading the careers programme at a technical and professional college 6 miles from the port in Southampton, the international port in Southampton. And I didn't know enough about this stuff. So I've come into this job knowing that I need to get that information to careers advisors and careers leaders. Sea fishing, aquaculture and marine science forms part of the maritime sector. It makes sense to us. We perhaps know that, perhaps we don't. It's not the actual act of fishing, but everything that goes in around it to make it possible. So the harbours and the maintenance of the boats and so on and so forth. It's a different government department that looks after the actual fishing. Marine science, as a careers professional, if I had £1 for every time I've been to a careers fair in my working life, and young people have said they want to be a marine biologist, when you turn around and you say to them, how do you do that? How do you actually turn that into a job? That's a really interesting one. I've got a lovely film that's in the careers area of the website, which is called How do you find a job as a marine biologist? And it's 3 alumni from Bangor University talking about the study that they did. I think one of them did natural sciences and the other 2 did marine biology, but one is now running a wild salmon farm off the west coast of Scotland near Oban. One is still studying. She's doing a PhD in paleo something or another, and it's about she's tracking global warming actually by studying glaciers and so on. That's slightly different, but she's done it that way. The third person is now working at the Sea Life Centre in I want to say Weymouth, but that way somewhere in Dorset, via having swum with sharks in California. So, and she just talks about living the dream. The interesting thing is the young man that helps to run the fish farm talks about living the dream as well. Great videos, and it's real, it's tangible advice. I'm just going to have a quick look at this poll. So we've said 7% have said they're very confident, fantastic, 34% confident, 33% not sure, and 26% not at all confident. So I think I've shared that with you. I'm going to close it down now, and then we'll come back and I'll ask you the same question at the end, if that's okay. Super yachts and leisure boating, fascinating. Super yachts classified as those that have paid crew, and leisure boating being everything else. Someone said to me the other day, you know, if it's painted white, it's probably a leisure boat, but I do, you know, I think there are variations on that, but it's a fairly sweeping statement. Super yachts as an industry absolutely fascinates me. I did manage to go and visit a manufacturer, a boat builder near the Saints Stadium in Southampton, but it was in my old role at the college before, actually. And I remember being utterly blown away. Apart from anything else, it was biometric testing. They were reading people's thumbprints to get into the dry dock area. This super yacht was set over 4 floors. It was brass and wood really inside. I mean, it was absolutely beautiful. But the gentleman that was showing me around, he said, as far as I'm concerned, there's too much wood here because you stop seeing it, it's everywhere. But there was a bit of a drama going on that day because on the not the top deck, the next one down, but that was where all the principal kind of accommodation was. There'd been a call that had come through, and it was a Russian oligarch that owned the boat, to say that his wife had decided that where the bedroom was right at the front with bifold doors and all the rest of it, and then the bathroom was behind it, that she decided she wanted the bath to be right up where the bed was, and the bed, you know, there was to be a change around. And it was causing quite a drama because there was no budget, there was no upper budget, and it was whatever Madam wanted, really. But I was blown away. Fantastic careers for young people who want to go crewing on super yachts. There aren't particular entry requirements in terms of qualifications. It's more about your attitude and your personality. I mean, obviously, when they work not 24 hours a day, but it could be very long days. And it's a lovely way for them to travel and to find out about themselves and the world and all the rest of it. But other super careers that support that industry as well. I do quite a lot of work with Princess Yachts, actually. They support the careers programme, and we've done 1 or 2 CPD sessions for careers advisors. It's just a fascinating industry. Leisure boating is obviously huge business. Now, the good news is that the Southampton International Boat Show is happening this year. It didn't happen last year, but that's a real celebration. And we work really closely with British Marine, actually. They are part of Maritime UK's National Council, so they help steer the activity of Maritime UK. Endless job opportunities in and around leisure boating. Engineering we bang on about constantly, and quite recently we've set up a working partnership with Engineering UK, actually, because we share so many sort of joint ambitions. So watch this space for a bit of work that we're going to be doing together. Inland waterways, don't need to describe them to you. Work boats and tugs that are my particular favourite, just because I think they're really cute and really strong and all the rest of it. But the career opportunities there are terrific. Big organisations like Serco, for example, have terrific training and progression opportunities. And for young people that are growing up and they just know, you know, I don't want to work in a shop, I don't want to work in an office, I want to do something that's a bit more exciting. We need to help people find out about these opportunities. The Workboat Association, again, is another member of Maritime UK, and Kerry Forster, who's the CEO and Managing Director, and I work quite closely on developing careers activity around that. And then the business services, you know, there's this whole story about every business needs an HR department, and they need someone who's paying the bills, and they need someone who's putting the invoices out there, someone who's looking after the customers, etc. When you think of Portsmouth International Port, for example, they employ 3,500 people. They're a large employer, and they have all those departments and more. So there's the business services that help the boats get to sea and the ships get to sea, but there's also the specialised business services. So maritime lawyers, shipbrokers, surveyors that work for Lloyd's Register or whatever, making sure that everything is as it should be, the financiers, the insurers, and the lawyers. So that's kind of an overview. So if you just forgive me, I will move on to my next slide. So a well-paid career. We know that the national average wage is now £29,000. The national average wage, the maritime average wage, is actually £38,000. So we talk to young people about this being a well-paid sector. It's thriving. There's a variety of entry points. There's no one way in, and there's no one organisation. There's any number of ways to come in, and really from people not leaving straight from school because they're expected to be in education or an apprenticeship until they're 18, but for 18-year-olds and up. So college leavers, for apprentices, for cadets that want to build a career at sea, for university graduates, for adult job seekers. You know, we are open for business and thriving, and we would say there's a place for everybody. The Green Revolution, just before Christmas, the Prime Minister announced the Green Industrial Revolution list, his 10-point plan, and maritime is on there. I heard yesterday or the day before that the combined carbon footprint of shipping is the same as Germany, which blew my mind a little bit. So that gives you an idea of the size of the problem. But the carbon net zero stuff was 0.10 on the government's 10-point plan. So we're glad to be there. We're also named, I mean, you will know that throughout lockdowns 1, 2 and 3, maritime kept moving. You know, the cruise ships went for a little break in Weymouth Bay primarily, but most of maritime kept going. Certainly the ports kept going, and they needed to be recognised as key workers. And in fact, we created a video celebrating maritime workers as key workers, which is on our website. But the Green Revolution, what's really interesting there is green tech, green revolution, ecology, clean air, clean oceans. Those are things that really matter to young people and they really engage with. So to know that the maritime sector is welcoming them with open arms, and we are looking for people that are interested in clean oceans, that are interested in getting involved in this change over to different fuel sources, that are interested in supporting wind farms and wind power generation, and to a lesser extent wave power generation. It's a bit further behind. But on the wind farms, actually, I was told by a professor from Hull University not so long ago that in order to meet the targets that have been set by the government for wind farm energy generation, we are 22,000 technicians short. And that's a massive number. Really well paid jobs. I mean, whether you're involved in the design or the manufacture or the building, you might work for Vestas, for example, on the Isle of Wight, whether you're involved in that part of it, or you are a technician who's going out on a workboat to the wind farm. Some of them are 70 or 80 miles out into the North Sea. You tend to work a shift of 3 weeks on and 3 weeks off. And you'll leave port out on the little workboat, and you will live and work on that workboat. So if ever there was a job role that required you to just be able to get along with anybody, that's one, because you're going to be stuck in this little place. But you'll be out on the wind farm, whether it's installing, maintaining, repairing, whatever, 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off, back you come. It's a job that often pays anywhere between sort of 35 and 40,000 pounds a year, and that's for working half the year. So but we need young people that want to be electrical engineers, mechanical engineers. We want people who are interested in technology and are happy to work at sea, to seek us out, to look for those jobs. And we've talked about the sector doubling in size in 30 years. A funded career. I talked a little bit about cadetships. I wonder how many of you know about cadetships. Probably more than I should have put that in as one of the polls, but I didn't. I have to be honest and say I didn't. I'd never heard of cadetships before I started doing my research to apply for this job. So for those of you that don't know, a cadetship is a bit like an apprenticeship. It's an apprenticeship for a career at sea, if you like. It's called a cadetship because instead of being employed by your employer, which is fundamental to an apprenticeship, you are sponsored by a shipping company. Your sponsorship will last 3 or 4 years, however long your cadetship pathway is, and there are different pathways. So you might take the navigation pathway, you might take the engineering pathway, you might take the deck pathway. There's talk about a fourth one coming on as well, but it's not available yet. But you would you'd be offered a sponsorship contract from a shipping company, and they take care of the costs of your training, and then you're able to apply for bursaries. And they sort of, the way that those courses work is that you are at a marine school or a maritime school for a block of time, and then you go to sea for a block of time, and it could be 6 months at Warsash, for example, or up in the northeast, and then you go to sea for 4 months, and then you might be back for 4 months and then at sea for 6 months or whatever. There are different ways that they're made up, but basically they you get that opportunity to learn the skills, and then you go and practice them at sea. There's talk about a review of cadetships actually, and how long they take to qualify. But the beauty of a cadetship is that, like I say, your training costs are all taken care of, your living costs are all taken care of. You can apply for the bursary, so you've got a bit of money coming in. It's not just young people that decide to take up a cadetship. I was talking to a chap yesterday who has been in the army for 7 years, so I guess we can guess he's a minimum of 23 years old. I don't know how old he is. He wants to move on from the army, and he's really interested in getting a career at sea. So he was quite excited about the thought of a cadetship. So that's how cadetships work. But the sector works with apprenticeships as well. And I was in a meeting the other day where it was a harbour master that was talking about his team, and he was talking about his succession planning, and he was talking about the investment that he makes in all the people that work for him, and that he sees that as a really fundamental part of his business, is to help people progress and help their skills grow. So he takes on apprentices, he employs them, and he keeps them. And out of his team, I think he said out of his team of 15 people, 8 of them had started as apprentices and were still there. And that's a really nice little statistic, I think. So a role for everyone: careers at sea and at shore, the chance to see the world, wide varying career pathways, the most beautiful views that you can imagine. I mean, the other thing that I would say, and I'm not sure if I said it already, forgive me if I had, but the careers at sea as part of maritime equate to about 25% of the people that are employed in the sector. 75% of the jobs are onshore, and make the 25 at sea possible. There was a young person, we do quite a lot of sessions like these for school children, and there was one that I did in Maritime UK Week in October last year, and a young man asked a question, and his question was, do you have to get your feet wet to work in maritime? And I just think it's the cutest thing, and I've used that line quite often in things that I've got published in magazines and all the rest of it, because it's a really nice opener. The answer is no, you don't have to get your feet wet. So moving on. So what is the careers programme? So we have a huge number of resources. We've got short virtual tours of boats, ships and ports. There's only about 13 of them. The last time I looked at the stats of how many times they were viewed, and we only launched them in March, they'd been viewed nearly 7,000 times. So they're on YouTube, and we promote them out through the programme and out through careers advisors and so on, but just promote them on social media and stuff as well. But clearly they have struck a chord and people are watching them. My favourite one is the one that was produced by HMS Protector. No, HMS Protector. I think it's HMS Protector. It's the ice patrol ship that goes down to the Antarctic. And the crew there, the ship was in dry dock having some maintenance, and the crew did a kind of TikTok video for us, going around the inside of the boat. Starts at the outside, going around the inside of the boat, and it is great. You know, the people on the bridge say, this is where it all happens. You go to the galley, and they say, this is the most important part of the ship, because if we don't feed people properly, nothing happens. You go and see the PT instructor, and, you know, true to type, he says, healthy body, healthy mind, you know, and it's all the stereotypes. But what you get get a chance to see inside the boat. I need to develop those resources further. I need, so if you've got some contacts and you can make it possible for me to see inside a lovely yacht or a boat, or perhaps the offices in a harbour or something like that, so that we can help bring the maritime sector to life for young people and adult job seekers. It's that business of being able to see behind the port wall. There is this saying in careers, you can't be what you can't see, and I choose to spell that SEA at the end, just because it appeals to me. But you know, the chance to see what goes on behind the port door, the chance to see what goes on behind the public facing part of a ferry, I think is really interesting. So we have virtual tours. I've got a large number of, I think it's on the next slide, I may be jumping ahead, I'll come back to that bit. I've got a large number of maritime information activity videos, and this is where you'll find the picture in the bottom left there with the orange fish. You might know what sort of fish they are with the scuba diver, is the one that's the how to become a marine biologist. The one on the far right there on the bottom is about careers at sea. The one in the middle is about greener yachting. And then we do business services as well. We've got one on global trade, we've got one on shipbrokers, we've got one about careers working, super one actually about navigation and kind of safety at sea, and it's following one of the work boats that looks after the lit buoys, and it's a young man that we meet, Storm his name is, which no, his name's not Storm, that's somebody else. No, his name is Storm, I'm sure his name is Storm. Anyway, forgive me if it's not, but terrific videos. Those videos are 20 to 40 minutes long, so that takes some investment to sit down and watch it. We'll be adding to those with more as well. The virtual tours though have proven to be such a hit, it's fantastic. We've also got posters, we've got no, it's not there, so I will go back. We've got a series of people in maritime interviews as well. I did a thing for National Careers Week and National Apprenticeship Week where I did a series of sort of Zoom call interviews with maritime people talking about 5 questions in 5 minutes it is. And the questions are, what drew you to a career in maritime? What was your entry route? Either what's been your career highlight or what's your ambition, depending on how early the person was in their career. Who's been the most important person in your journey? That was fascinating. You know, from it's the old man that lives next door, he was in the Navy, he told me about it, to another young lady that told me it was her mum because she looks after her dogs when she's on a night shift, or whenever she's at work, actually, I think is what she said. But there's about 25 of them, lots of different people talking about lots of different careers. Also discovered that comparison between someone who's just starting out and who's further up the food chain, if you like, in the organisation is really interesting. So for National Careers Week, we did a number of those videos that was a sort of a 3-way chat. We've got one with 2 ladies from BAE, for example, talking about their engineering careers. And it's someone who's just starting out, who's on an apprenticeship, and a lady who started out in the Royal Navy and is now a director of engineering combat systems, I think. So she's really worked her way up through the organisation. But them talking together, there was another pairing on a city cruises boat on the Thames, Charlie, who's done quite a lot for us with the careers work and now looks after all the trainees, and a young man who, again, his name escapes me right now, but he has just qualified, just completed his cadetship. I talked to them about their career ambition and their career highlight and so on, and the young man that's just qualified has said that his ambition was to have the other man's job, which I thought was quite funny. Nothing wrong with ambition. So there's those sorts of resources. We've also got careers videos, regional ones. We've got a Solent one, a Southwest one, and a Liverpool City region one, which are about 4 minutes long. We've got a careers brochure and so on and so forth. So we're trying to make sure that the careers area of the website, and if you put in Maritime UK careers into Google or whichever search engine you use, you'll find your way there. The really interesting thing that I find is that the hardest part of my job is helping people to understand what the maritime sector is. To get them excited about jobs and opportunities within it, once they understand what the sector is a piece of cake. because there's so much to tell them. So if I'm talking to them about future jobs, for example, if I'm talking to them about robotics, or if I'm talking to them about autonomous vessels, there's a little organization that has produced a robot that cleans the green and brown sticky stuff from the underside of a hull of a cargo ship or a cruise ship when it's in harbor. It's just two guys, two Scandinavian brothers, that set up this business. It's called Eco Subsea, and the way that they described the unit to me is they said it was a cross between a vacuum cleaner and a lawnmower. And it trims back. You guys all know what the technical term is for that sticky stuff, but it trims it back and collects it, and can do a whole cargo ship in about eight hours. So when the cargo ship comes in and they're unloading and then reloading, this little robot can go backwards and forwards the whole time, collects up the sticky stuff. That is then turned into biofuel. So there's a fantastic ecology kind of story going on there, and a you know, climate change effector. But the big news is that that can increase the fuel efficiency of the cargo ship by 40% by cleaning off that drag. I think that's a terrific story. There's another, when we talk about ship cybersecurity, you know, if you've got a young person that you're working with who loves sailing, absolutely loves sailing, but is determined to build a career in computers because that's what they want to do, that's what they've always wanted to do, you could talk to them about ship cybersecurity. And that was something that I'd never even heard of. And someone said to me, you know, if you remember when GDPR came in, that's got nothing on this, but it's wrapped up. It's really, really important, particularly important when you think about autonomous boats. So autonomous boats clearly are run not by humans, but by computers, have their destination coordinates plugged in and programmed in, and then can be managed by someone from a computer on shore. That's great, but you don't need Jack Sparrow and his pirate ship to come alongside to take over control of that boat. What you need is your James Bond style villain with a big white fluffy cat on their lap and a laptop, and they just hack into the system and change the destination coordinates. Alternative fuel, there are already water taxis in the water, in development and in the water. Particularly there's a project called Artemis in Northern Ireland that's working on this. So water taxis that they're working on, that is emission free. They are working on ferries, and they hope to have a zero emission ferry in the water by the end of next year, which is extraordinary. So there's just all this exciting stuff going on in the sector. I find it really easy to help people get excited about it. And there's a person that I work with called Ian McKinnon, who you may have come across. He's a bit of a maritime skills guru, and as part of my induction, really, every time I was chatting to him, I would try and come up with another job, and I wasn't sure how it fitted into the sector, and he would tell me where it fitted into the sector. That's the point. It's so big, it's so vast. Tell me a job, I'll tell you where you can do that in the sector. What we want is, we want young people and adult job seekers to recognise how exciting the future is for maritime and to seek us out, rather than, as I said earlier, kind of fall into maritime and find themselves following a career in finance and end up working at a port, for example. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but we just want people to be positively seeking us out. I think at this stage, what I'm going to do is I am going to launch the second poll. Launch. So one of the things that we do is we, oh, hang on, poll must be closed to enable screen sharing. No, it's in progress, that's fine. One of the things that I do for careers professionals is that we run industry specialist CPD sessions. So, for example, we have, between now and the end of the academic year, I've got one towards the end of the month, exploring careers in the Royal Fleet Auxiliary. I've got one in June where we're looking at super yacht crewing and careers at sea. And then I've got one in July that's about design-based careers in maritime. And that one I'm particularly excited about. We've got a naval architect, we've got a normal architect, if you like, but their practice specialises in port and harbour infrastructure. And then we've got another person joining us who runs a design agency for maritime stuff, if you like. They've been involved. They're called Helm, if you want to look them up. Helm Innovation, I think is what they're called. They've created a new, much safer ladder for people transferring from one boat to a ship and back again, and won awards for that. So we look at, and then in the RYA are helping me with this, because we're going to do some sessions in the new year, in the new academic year, looking at careers as an instructor and careers in water sports, for example, and linking that to workboats. And I've got the Border Force and Serco also really interested in coming together with RYA so that we can look at the kind of jobs that RYA qualifications can lead to in other bigger boats, and then to expand that and to look at job opportunities. So I can see, I'm just going to have to collecting, the poll's still in progress, there's still ones coming in. I'll share the results with you in a moment. So we do those sorts of things, and I can't do that without partners such as RYA, because I'm not the one with the expertise, but we're always looking at what we haven't done. And actually I did a session yesterday for work coaches at Job Centre Plus, because we need to support adult job seekers too. And there was a gentleman from Oyster Yachts who was a fantastic speaker, and I've been in touch with him since, and just said, can we do a whole session on yacht building, you know, the whole process? Because what I'd really love is to get to a place when a young person or an adult job seeker sits down in front of a careers advisor, careers leader, someone who's provided information and guidance at a college or wherever, and says, I love design technology. My favourite medium is wood. What jobs can I do with wood? And that professional remembers to talk about the maritime sector and remembers to talk about boat building, because at the moment it's most likely that they'll say to them, okay, so you want to be a carpenter, do you want to be a kitchen fitter, a shop fitter, do you want to do cabinet making, are you thinking about working on a building site? And I can, you know, almost guarantee that they won't remember to say you know, what have you thought about maritime? Have you thought about boat building? Wow, how exciting would it be to be using your carpentry skills on a super yacht? And kind of that's where we're trying to get to, so that when key influencers are giving that advice, they remember to say maritime. So let's see if I can work the technology and then share the poll results, so you can see that. So 89% have said you'd like to join subsequent sessions. That's absolutely brilliant. I'll make sure that I share that information with Amanda, and it can go out through your CPD networks. You're very welcome to come along. As I said, you have the role as kind of unofficial careers advisors, and we're here to support you with that. So I'm just going to hide this because I have to do this properly, otherwise it won't let me change the screen. It's quite complicated. Right, so what could you do to support us? You could actually become one of our industry ambassadors. We have a network of industry ambassadors. We have, at latest count, is 113. We launched our industry ambassadors network. It's a volunteers network of people from the sector who would like to go and support careers activity in schools and colleges. It's not paid, I'm afraid. It is just something that we do as volunteers. The impact is massive. It's managed on our website that's called Inspiring the Future. Schools and colleges, it's a bit, if you'll forgive the comparison, it's a bit like an online dating website, in that a school or a college goes on, registers, sets up a profile, and then they say, we're doing this careers event and I would like people from the following sectors or job roles to come and support it. It's not just a maritime thing, it's all job roles. So if they were doing mock interviews, they might say, can I have one from construction, one from hospitality, one from maritime, one from finance, etc., etc. And you kind of get sent offers to go and support careers activity. And at the moment, it's all virtual. Eventually, it will be face-to-face again. But I'm always looking for new ambassadors. And if that's something that interests you, you'll have a copy of this afterwards. Follow the link and you'll be able to register. We do a sort of a welcome information session. The big news is the impact that it has. So we have 113 ambassadors. We launched our network at the end of September last year. We have spoken to more than 12,700 children in schools since the end of September about maritime careers, which blows my mind when I hear these numbers. So this is a vehicle that is really working. So I support the ambassadors, but the sorts of things you might get asked to do. I was asked to take part in a sort of a What's My Line event, and it was in Bradford, and it was primary school and secondary school and college age children. And state schools, not private schools, but I was asked to take part in What's My Line. They had to guess what my job was, and it was during lockdown 2, so the end of last year. So the children were at home, and one young person very cleverly asked in the chat, "Are you a program manager?" And I wanted to say you get all the points for initiative, because they clearly looked me up on Google, because they couldn't have got that from my answers. But so you might be asked to do that sort of thing. You might be asked to come along and talk about your job and talk about your career pathway and talk about what's great about the job that you do and what's not so great. Be prepared for children to ask you how much you earn, because they tend to do that, and have a stock answer up your sleeve. A good way of answering it is saying, oh, people that are starting out in this industry might come in as an apprentice and it pays so much a week or whatever. But that's the sort of thing you might get asked to do, mock interviews, etc. So our careers ambassadors are out there talking to schools. If young people ask you a question that you're not sure of, send them our way. Point them in the direction of the careers website. Put them in touch with me. You'll see my email at the end of the presentation. Point them our way, and we'll answer those questions. If you can share links to the website, if you want to, print out one of the posters that's on the website and put it up on a notice board at the venue where your activity is based, please feel free to do that. And if you see things on social media, please retweet, reshare, and so on. Link with me on LinkedIn and Twitter. That would be amazing. There's the Careers Professionals Network we've talked about. There's 276, I think, people that are in our network. I want that to get to 500. And they're in all 4 member nations of the UK. We had someone from Northern Ireland join us quite recently. We've also got a lady in the network who works at a Citizens Advice Bureau in a coastal community, and she says, people are coming in and they're asking about jobs, and I need to know about this stuff. So she comes along. But you're very welcome to sign up for that, and then I can send you the newsletter that's got news and new resources and so on, and you'll get advance notice of CPD sessions and so on. We had a little test earlier to see if this video would run, and it would, but it wasn't sharing any sound, which is always the jeopardy when you do these sorts of sessions. If you follow that link, it will take you to YouTube and you'll be able to find one of our careers videos. But within the careers website, there are 3 regional videos, one in the southwest, one in the Solent, and one in the northwest. And between them, they highlight someone who's doing a port operations. I think she's completed her apprenticeship. A young lady who's done port operations at Peel Ports in Liverpool. A young lady who's training to be a maritime lawyer. A young man who is doing engineering with Babcock in the southwest, and a young lady who's doing an electrical apprenticeship for a sort of a business that's based in the harbour and supports anyone who needs help with repairs and running repairs and so on. And then also someone who works in maritime defence engineering for Kinetic. He talks about scuba diving as part of his kind of daily work. And a young chap who works for Serco on one of the workboats in Portsmouth Harbour. So there's a good spread, girls and boys. There's also reference to one of the marine schools, Warsash in Hampshire. And those are my contact details. So that's the end of my presentation. And as ever, I've talked for much longer than I should have done. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the third poll, which if you would be happy to answer, I'd be very grateful. And then once we've done that, I'll stop sharing my screen and then we'll go to any questions that any of you might have. I think in closing, that's the pictures that were taken a couple of years ago at London International Shipping Week, which is a September event. And 1 year it's London International Shipping Week, and the year in between, because it's every other year, we do Maritime UK Week in October. London International Shipping Week is week commencing the 13th of September. It's the same week as the Southampton International Boat Show. We are hoping to do a live careers event for London school children on the HQS Wellington on the Thames, and at the same time simultaneously have a careers fair that's virtual that people all over the country can log into. So hopefully I'll have some new pictures to update these things with after September. Okay, I'm going to close the poll and share it with you, but I'm absolutely delighted that 68% of you have said that you now feel more confident. So that was wonderful. My work here is done.